Some time ago, I reacted to one of Order of Magnitude's videos, which was it's an EMF detector that actually picks up the sounds of EMF. Now, I done a video and reacted to it, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail today and show you the possibilities that a device like what he was using would possibly give us answers to what actually EVP or ITC is. When you think about what is EVP, we always assumed that they're the voices of the dead or the voices of the afterlife, and you record them on a device. You don't hear it in real time, but when you play it back, you do. But the average recording device is within the hearing range of a human ear. So that kind of got me asking questions. What actually is EVP? And is there a possibility that it may not be vocal tones at all? So we're going to go into Order of Magnitude's video, and I've got a couple of videos that recently came out. I'm going to leave the links at the end of the video. Please watch those videos in full because they're quite good. They're from a channel called Planet Weird. It's Greg and Dana Newkirk from Ohio. They have the Paranormal Objects podcast, and recently they have done 3 videos of a 4-part series on Voices from Beyond. So they have similar conclusions than some of us, and they're able to explain it a lot better than me because I trip over my words. So let's get into Order of Magnitude's video, and I'm going to have to make myself a little bit smaller here. So we're going to go down here, possibly. Oh, I'm going to explain why this background is in the video, because it all ties into all of this. So let's get into Order of Magnitude's video here.
Okay, so my buddy Miller of many, many years has come round, and he's one of these people who he uses a K2 meter properly, not for ghost meter, but because he is really worried about fucking radio waves and cancer and shit like that. So he has one of these things. This is much more advanced than a K2 meter. It actually gives you the noises of the electric smog. But what is frightening about this is, I swear to God, I heard fucking talking, a voice come through on it. Could this be used as a paranormal? Okay, so watch this. I mean, if I go near like a Wi-Fi, but I heard a voice coming through. Like, I'm like, what? You're not going to hear voices. You're going to hear just, because obviously, so this thing's on, for example, you know. Hang on, I've got a lot of mess, and you have to excuse the mess. But do you get what I mean? I'm going to have to get one of these one day, because I swear to God, or ask me if I can borrow it, I swear to God I heard a voice twice. You know, usually it's just going to make the noise of whatever, but can these entities use this? I really don't know. But yeah, he's got it because, well, hello, is there anybody here that could use this device to talk to me? Hello? If you can use this device, just say hey, anything. Swear for me even. Can you talk to me? But do you get what I mean? I mean, you know, this is not meant to have voices on it at all, I don't think. But twice I heard it, so I'm gonna... One day I'll do a session. Wish we could do one in... You know what I mean? Sam would be absolutely fascinated with this thing. I would show you more around the house, but I've got housework to do, I've got a friend around. All our chairs are moved around because, you know, we're in a circle talking, you know. So, if you excuse me. But yeah, he's just got this out, he's just like talking about, you know, Missy's asking him questions sort of thing, you know. What? But this is, yeah, it's a very cool piece of equipment, and I reckon it could be used for paranormal purposes, only because I just, you know, I did not expect to hear some sort of voice. I don't know what it said, but it was not just this. It was a clear voice twice, and, you know, I was like, what the hell?
Right. Interesting. I did on the last video. I did after the last video. What I did do is I actually looked into where I could get this EMF meter, and it's quite expensive. So I started looking into alternatives, and funny enough, the alternative that I've been instructed to use is actually guitar pickup. Now, what I think is happening with this EMF meter is that there is an unshielded microphone in that device which actually picks up EMF. With the microphones like this one here, they're shielding to shield out as much EMF as possible, otherwise the quality is going to be terrible. But what this device does, it picks up the interference from the electronic field. So, and it brings me, believe it or not, and some people will not like it, it brings me to which I hope opens. There we go. The Panasonic DR60, which some people don't like, but that is an important part of the story as well, along with the difference between this recorder right here, which is the Zoom H4n, which is a professional recording device. It's got the microphones on the outskirts of the casing itself, and Ghost Hunter's favourites, the old recorders. So here's mine, which is the VN4100 PC from Olympus, and that's an old recorder. So why are people choosing an old shitty recorder or a Panasonic DR60 over professional item like this? And we just watched Order of Magnitude's video here, and that links to these. This is a professional recording device which has good shielding. This and the Panasonic DR60, and the Panasonic DR60 especially, has poor shielding. What did I say earlier on? I hope I said, because I had to start this video a couple of times. The shielding could be connected with this EVP phenomenon. What I said earlier on is most of these devices they pick up voices and audio within the hearing range. Now, Greg Newkirk from the Planet Weird podcast one time says that the Panasonic DR60 hears above and below the human hearing range, and that's why we possibly pick up EVPs. And it is one of the recent videos on the EVPs from the Voices from Beyond. He brought that up and said that he was completely wrong. Now, he has come up with the conclusion that some of us had for a long time, but we couldn't fully prove it. At the end of the day, I'm not an audio engineer, I'm not an electric engineer, I don't know a huge amount about these things, and I'm not an electronics expert. But, if we're picking up voices from these shitty recorders, is it not possible that the electronic EMF field has got something to do with these EVPs? That it's not just vocal tones? When a microphone works, it's kind of like the reverse of a speaker. You've got a cone, you've got a piece of paper. And in a speaker, when you send a signal to the speaker, the cone vibrates by a solid magnet and a coil. And when the signal goes through the coil, it causes an electronic magnetic field that opposes parts of the solid magnet, which causes the cone to move in and out, which pushes the air, which creates a sound that we pick up with our ears. It's the opposite when it comes to the microphone. But for the microphone to pick up sound, you have sound going to the microphone and vibrating off the cone or the plate on the microphone. What if that's not the case, where there is a manipulation of the microphone itself from small electronic fields? When you look at ghost hunters and you see ghost hunters, very often they walk around with EMF detectors because they seem to believe in the possibility that electronic magnetic fields is involved in the paranormal some way. The information had to come from somewhere. But I'm going to play the other video, and it explains more than my babbling, if you know what I mean. And then we're going to connect it all to order magnitudes EMF detector that picks up sounds of EMF.
The other thing that differentiates these really, really cheap recording devices from the really, really expensive ones is shielding. So the really expensive ones have better shielding. What did we say earlier? When we were setting up the studio, one of the things that we had to do is we had to buy special shielded cables. This stuff's really expensive in a lot of times. If you want a really nice recording setup, you need to put a lot of time and energy into shielding your stuff so that you don't collect electromagnetic interference or electrical interference.
Yeah, and what order magnitude's EMF detector is actually picking up what that interference is.
The cheaper recorders don't have that stuff. We've already mentioned this before. The FCC says these must accept interference. That brings us to our thoughts about what's happening with these things. I don't think that these EVPs are actually being caused by sound waves. I think that they're actually being caused by electromagnetic interference, because I think that's what a lot of ghosts are. If we go back to last episode of this 4-part episode that we're doing on Voices from Beyond, talking about the Coons family, what were the ghosts trying to get them to build? They were saying these entities that they didn't even think were ghosts at first. They thought they were angels, things from outer space. They were saying, we need you to build an electric table, something that maybe was there to cause very minor fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. When we wear the God helmet, it is causing very minor changes in the electromagnetic field of our brains. That's the point of it. Not big ones, because that would just overpower the whole thing. We're talking about really little electromagnetic fluctuations, the kind that you would get inside of your own brain.
You can almost look at a schematic diagram of an electric condenser microphone.
This is the interesting part. This is, you will see some of these little microphones, you'll see them in packets of 10 or packets of 5 in on Amazon or eBay. This is it broken down, and he explains it very well here.
And you can see that little chamber.
Yes.
And you can look at it and go, okay, I know that the voice is not pushing down on the diaphragm, because that means air is moving and I would hear it with my own ears.
That's the point I was trying to make there. If it was vocal tones, we should be able to hear with our own ears, yet we don't.
I know, therefore, that this voice being real, we're all accepting that these voices are real here in this conversation. These voices being real must then be happening below the diaphragm, somewhere in between that piezoelectric film and the back plate. That box is being manipulated somehow by very small fluctuations in energy. And I don't think they can get through to the stronger recorders. And that's why these little ones catch those voices.
That's what we think is happening in a lot of these cases. Now, it's up to you to decide whether you think that that interference is intelligent or not.
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is us coming up for a possible theory of what electronic voice phenomenon is. But we're also open to be completely wrong. But it does actually make sense when we talk about vocal tones. If the recorder is picking up vocal tones, should we not hear them in real time? Yes, EVPs are recordings on recorders that are not heard in real time and only heard when played back.
I think in a lot of cases it is. You can hear this interference yourself. You put a recording device, one of these cheap recording devices, next to your phone, next to a radio. You will get that stuff in there. You will hear what it sounds like. Compare that to some of the EVPs that you've heard that seem as if they're manipulating that sound in an intelligent way. I really do believe, I don't think ghosts are necessarily dead people these days, but I do think that the secret behind a lot of what we're experiencing are minute electromagnetic changes. Sometimes they're geomagnetic changes, places that people have experienced weird things that their minds have helped them see because the electromagnetic field has changed around their mind. I think they could probably do that to these devices too, if it's a shitty enough recorder to pick up those weak enough signals.
I think what's funny is going into this episode, I've always been really skeptical of EVP, only because there's so many things that can potentially get in the way of what we're really talking about. I think it's always been something that I've been a bit skeptical about. But ironically, after this episode, I believe in it more than I did beforehand, only because what we're really talking about is something that's happening on such a subtle level that it would make sense that if there was if spirits or ghosts or whatever it is that we're communicating with have the ability to do that, it would be on a level that subtle that, yeah, it does kind of make more sense to me now after the fact, which is funny. I'm leaving this episode more of a believer than I was before going into it.
So that is basically it. That, you know, it's interesting. It's an interesting theory. But it does have a relation to what order of magnitude was demonstrating in this video. Now there's another picture that I want to show you here, which brings me into ITC. And this is the Frank's box, the Frank's box here. Oh, there we go. The Frank's box. Now, it's 2003, 2004. Somewhere around that time period, Frank came up with these boxes, right? And after that, it's when the mass production of the Ghost box came into play. So we had the PSP-7 and other boxes, and you know, these are basically radios that scan through the frequencies. Some devices scan through them randomly, or some linearly, using various voltage, a varied voltage regulator, which would be the tuner. Now, the difference between the Frank's box and these mass-produced devices or hacked radios is, as far as I know some of them have, but I don't know if all of them have. But with these Frank's boxes, what is inside some of them, and possibly all of them, is an echo tube. Now, an echo tube has a speaker on one end and a microphone on the other end. So what's coming out of this box isn't coming out directly from the radio. It's coming from another speaker and picked up by another microphone. Why is this? It's possibly because the theory around it is that these communicators can manipulate the microphone inside the echo tube. So that sort of ties in with the with the possibility of what order of magnitude was demonstrating. Now, I have to go a little bit big here on my side here, because I'm going to show you it's not my idea, it came from somebody else that I can't remember, sorry about that, but other electrical engineers that are in the paranormal field have been using when it comes to picking up EMF. And that is some sort of an amplification device or a voice recorder and a guitar pickup. Now, mightn't be as sensitive as order of magnitude's device, but we're going to give this one a go. So we're going to turn it on here. Hopefully I don't turn the microphone towards the speaker and make big squeaky noises, but right, this is my fingers. Now I'm going to bring this microphone towards my computer here. I'm bringing it in and over and back. That's my PC. Here's the monitor. And there's me bringing it back. And the other monitor. And I'm just bringing it 6 to 8 inches. Towards the computer and the monitor. Whoops. Whoop. So this is, it was less than £20. It's a pickup for an acoustic guitar. You basically put it in the echo hole in the guitar, basically, and you plug that into an amplifier and turns your acoustic guitar into an electrical guitar. Now, I'm not 100% sure, and it's probably simple information. Is this an unshielded microphone? That I don't know. So I don't know how much shielding is in that, but it is picking up. It is picking up electromagnetic fields. I've actually used it near my aquarium tank. It picked up the electronic device. It picked up the vocal tones of the spray bar that was spraying the water and stuff like that. So there's a possibility that you could experiment around with this for ITC or EVPs or whatever. You can connect one of these to a recorder, and if you have a good quality recorder like a Zoom H4, you're not messing around with horrible bit rates, which a lot of these older devices have. A lot of people criticize the Panasonic DR60 for being so unshielded. And then you had recently Beardo gets scared, saying that these people, these ghost hunters that are using the Panasonic DR60, they've had enough information by now to know that if you're using one of these, you're faking. And it's not the case. It's not the case. He is basically, I've got nothing against Beardo, but sometimes when it comes to ITC, he doesn't completely understand ITC. And he's basing the information off Kenny Biddle. I love Kenny Biddle. But I think the experiments and the trials that he had done with the Panasonic DR60, he was basing it off the vocal tones, of vocal tones and things like that, rather than the possibility that EVPs may be electromagnetic interference and not vocal tones at all. Now, I would agree that the Panasonic DR60 has a horrible bit rate. Like, I have the newer version of the Panasonic DR60, which is the QR80. And, if you pick up something on that, trying to clean it up is pretty hard because the quality isn't there and that. But, is there a possibility that rather than vocal tones, we're talking about tiny changes in the electronic field that is not vocal tones but interfering with the microphone, like was explained on the Planet Weird podcast? I don't know, but I was glad to see Order of Magnitude's video on that EMF detector, which not only picks up the EMF, picks up the audio as well. Unfortunately, it was pretty expensive, but people have been experimenting with these guitar pickups. Now, I'm not an electrical engineer, and I haven't looked up the stats on what ranges they pick up and that, but it's given me similar effects to what Order of Magnitude was demonstrating in that video. So it's another way of looking at what is ITC, what is EVP, because we always assumed that they're vocal tones of some kind, but if there were vocal tones of some kind, Why are we not picking them up in our ears in real time when it comes to EVPs? So that's a possible answer. We're not saying we're right. We're just throwing out this other theory here that the possibility is there. Now, it reminds me, this picture in the background. Back when I was in secondary school, we were looking into, myself and the science teacher after school were looking into this guy, because this guy actually made it to mainstream news. And this is one of those famous pictures. And I don't know if it was this picture or a similar picture, but I asked the science teacher, what is going on right here? Because in the videos, it was VHS videos that we were looking at. Very often, he was talking into some sort of microphone. And then the science teacher was saying, well, he has to record the session, or he has to record the communication in some way. So that's possibly. But then again, when you look over here, there's another microphone hanging from here. Now, it could just be hanging there. And what is this? I don't know. But at the time, I didn't take into account that this microphone was part of a recording device. Now, it might be, it might not be, but I thought that this microphone was connected to the radio sometime, in some way. So I couldn't afford a nice fancy big radio like this, but what I had at home in my father's garage was these old-fashioned type car radios that kind of look like this. So what I got was this car radio. I made a wooden box around it, and I covered it in leather, and I had a cloth speaker. The speaker came from a television. Then I started experimenting around with a small microphone, and I connected one to the speaker, and another one, I started poking around the circuit and speaking into it every time I touched a resistor on the circuit. And then there was one resistor that I had touched on this circuit, and I went, hello, hello, and my voice came out through the speaker of the radio. So I twisted the wire around the resistor, and then I brought the radio into my science teacher, and he was going, what's the microphone for? And I says, well, if we're talking to the spirit through an electronic device, or they're talking to us through the electronic device, why shouldn't we talk to them through the electronic device? And then he was going, what if the spirit, at the time we would call them spirits or ghosts, would use the microphone to communicate through the radio? Now you have to think, way back then, there was no such thing as scanning radio stations here. We cut that tuner out because ITC, some people use the Frank Sumption method and some people use the static method. And a lot of people that use the static method don't like the method of the scan radio because you're bringing vocal tones into it. But the science teacher is going, maybe the spirits or ghosts could manipulate the microphone. And maybe that's what they're doing. But these mass-produced spirit box don't have a microphone. Maybe in the future somebody will cop on and possibly do that. I don't know. But That's 3-minute video of order of magnitude, just brought back this theory that some of us in the ITC community, that we don't talk about everything on flipping YouTube, but there's all sorts of theories out there. So I'm not shitting on Beardo, but Beardo, you have to look beyond the ghost hunting community. If you're going to start talking about ITC stuff and fucking the PSP-7, I think the PSP-7, I don't like that thing at all. I think it's just cheap and nasty and all the rest of it. I don't like it. Some people love it, some people don't. I don't like it. But when it comes to recorders, yes, some of these ghost hunters have their finger behind the recorder and scratching it, and it could be pareidolia. But you still have to look into these other possibilities, because we didn't say for definite that EVPs were vocal tones, that EVPs were picked up in the normal way that a recorder works, by picking up vibrations and vocal tones. We didn't, some of us believe that it could be happening through these small electronic EMF fluctuations that are around us all the time, and is affecting unshielded or poorly shielded microphones. But I don't want to upset anybody, but you can't just simply come out with these people. Anybody that's using the DR60 is automatically faking. Yes, there's a lot of ghost hunters that are faking and they want instant results, but you still have to look into it. You still have to look into it deeply before you make a statement like that. Yes, some of these ghost hunters have millions of viewers and that, they're using the DR60 because it's the big popular thing and that, and they don't understand the equipment themselves. But there's more to look into EVPs than just thinking of it as vocal tones. And that's possibly what's happening. And that's all I'm trying to say here. But, interesting video from order of magnitude. It's only 3 minutes. And I covered it before. But it just opens your eyes to the possibility that EVPs may not be vocal tones at all. And it may be the communicator manipulating EMF fields in the environment around us. Gonna leave it for now. Talk to you again soon. Sorry it's been so long since I've done a video. I haven't been well, but I'm starting to recover a little bit. Thank you.